Hello and welcome to Tech for Non-Techies, the only podcast that demystifies the fast-growing technology sector. I'm your host, Sophia Matveeva, Chicago-based MBA and tech entrepreneur. My aim here is to give you the skills, knowledge and confidence to find opportunities in the tech sector, whether that's through founding a company, getting a dream job, or bringing a fresh perspective to your work. Hello, smart people. This episode is going to be short and sweet because we're going to talk about one thing, but it's an important thing. That's why I want to have a whole episode on it. And that thing is technical co-founders. I find that so many non-technical founders and so many aspiring non-technical founders end up wasting a lot of time, a lot of stress, looking for somebody who's essentially going to rescue them. And I'm here to tell you that you don't need to have that person. Yes, I am telling you that you don't need to have a technical co-founder if you're building a tech-enabled business. So, first of all, let's have some definitions, because you do need to have a technical co-founder, or you need to have a whole technical team at the helm if you're building a deep tech business. So if you're building something like DeepMind, this episode does not apply to you. In fact, if you're building something like DeepMind, what are you doing listening to the Tech for Non-Techies podcast? Here, I'm talking to people who want to build tech-enabled businesses. Either they want to create something themselves, or they're working in a big company and they want to create some kind of innovation that's going to serve their existing customers better. So tech-enabled businesses are usually innovations in how we deliver an existing service at a cheaper price, or how we deliver it better via technology. The core of the business is not technology. The core of the business is something non-technical, and we're using technology to either make it cheaper or to make it more scalable or to make the process better. So if you're building a tech-enabled business, you do not need a technical co-founder. And the reason why I really want to emphasize this point is because pretty much all of the tech press and a lot of the VCs that you see will tell you that you do need to have a technical co-founder. Now, the reason why I think that is that if you look at the iconic founder stories, so you look at Apple, you look at Facebook, you will see that there were technical co-founders. So if you look at Steve Jobs or Steve Wozniak, the two people who founded Apple, Steve Wozniak was the genius developer and Steve Jobs was the non-technical founder. So this is all true, and that was definitely necessary in that time. But Apple was founded in 1975. Technology has moved on a lot since then. So if you're building a tech-enabled business, then a lot of the technology that you need already exists, so it can literally be plugged into whatever website or app you have using an API, or it can be fairly easily and cheaply replicated using outsourced developers. So if you're building a tech-enabled business, the technology, or at least the processes for making that technology, already exist. This is why at the beginning you're not innovating in technology. You're innovating in how you serve your customers and how you deliver your product, but you're not innovating in technology. If you think that this recipe is not going to lead to success, or this recipe is unproven, then you are wrong. If you actually look at Uber, when they first started, they actually didn't have their own proprietary technology. They used existing technologies together in one app to improve an existing service. So they used Google Maps, they used PayPal, they used a few other APIs together, sewn together in one app to improve how you get a taxi and get from A to B. That is a tech-enabled business in terms of its technology. Now, obviously, things have moved on. But Uber is now a listed company. It's a global company. It also has a bunch of problems, but this is not what this podcast is about. But the way Uber started was by collecting existing technologies, not by innovating in technology. They were innovating in service delivery. So, to summarize, if you've got a tech-enabled business, you don't absolutely have to have a technical co-founder. Now, when I say you don't absolutely have to have one, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have one. If you are working with somebody who has a technical background, who wants to work on something with you and who is a brilliant partner and who is already supportive to you, then don't throw them out. Definitely use that opportunity. But the reason why I'm saying all of this to you right now is that most of us don't. Most non-technical founders do not have somebody with a computer science degree or somebody who can build a backend or build an app just sitting there wanting to go into business with us. And a lot of non-technical founders end up wasting their time looking for this person who they think is going to be their holy grail instead of actually focusing on how to get their idea into a live product, get it into users' hands so they can start seeing the feedback loop and seeing how people use the product and then innovating from there. So what do you absolutely have to have? Or rather, who do you absolutely have to have if you're a non-technical founder? You do need somebody who is going to help you by advising you on technology. So that could be a friend, or it could be an official advisor to your company, but they don't need to be a full-time person working with you. I've seen many non-technical founders do it this way, and I've done it this way too. So essentially, when you've got an idea for something technology enabled, but you don't know anything about technology, and you need to, for example, make a very simple app that ties together existing technologies. Now, you can't do it yourself, so you need to hire somebody to do it. But how do you hire somebody to do a job that you don't understand? It's very normal to be quite nervous about this and to think, well, I could just hire somebody who's a complete dud. So this is where you get help. This is where you have your technical advisor, your friend who has the background that you need, who kind of almost has the background to be your technical co-founder, but they're not your technical co-founder because they've got their well-paid job in Google or on Facebook or wherever they happen to be working, and they're quite happy with it. But also, you don't really need somebody who is doing AI development at Facebook to help you build an app that just puts together some APIs. What you do is you talk to that person maybe once a week, every couple of weeks, and you tell them what you want to achieve. So what is the end goal that you're getting to? And you ask for some advice. You say, how would you do this? Is there a way to do it with existing technologies? Is there a way that I can do it without spending lots of money on development? At this point, you could literally go to an outsourced product company and ask them to help you bring your idea come to life. When you're speaking to these outsourced product companies, it will be really helpful to you if you have your technical advisor on the calls. If you have that person reviewing the documents and seeing whether this is a proposal that makes sense or if it doesn't make sense. So for example, a lot of developers and outsourced development shops, they would have a GitHub account. GitHub, I think I've mentioned it on this podcast several times. So GitHub is kind of like a LinkedIn for developers, but on GitHub you can see examples of code that those developers have written. Now, if you go and you look at that GitHub, that's not going to give you much information. But if your technical advisor has a look at that GitHub, they'll be able to tell whether the development shop, the outsourced developers, have built something similar to what you want to get built or whether they have the skills to do so. Getting a technical advisor is much easier than convincing somebody to become your technical co-founder. If somebody is a co-founder, that means that they have to go all in with what you're doing. So at some point, they will have to quit their job. Equally, if you're doing some entrepreneurship at a bigger company and you're innovating, you don't need to have a full-time engineer on your team. Another thing that I've mentioned here is working with outsourced developers. Working with outsourced developers is a really good way for you to build something quickly and to test it quickly. And it's also a good way for you to scale up and scale down. So if you raise some money, it's going to be easier for you to get a few more people from that agency. And if you decide that actually you want to reduce investment, it's going to be much easier to do that with an agency than basically hiring people and then firing people. Also, you don't necessarily know what kind of technology and what kind of tech stack you need to build your product. And it's very likely that your product is going to change because your customers' needs are going to change. So if you're working with outsourced developers, they're likely to have a bunch of different skills so they can carry on changing the tech stack. So if you're working with an outsourced product studio or outsourced developers and you've got your technical lead, you should be able to launch an MVP, get it out into the market, and get it into users' hands. Having a technical lead and an outsourced product company is a much lower barrier to entry than getting somebody to leave their well-paid job in a big tech company and then hiring developers to sit with you full-time. When you're right in the early stages of building something, you have no idea whether it's going to work and you don't know how the market is going to react. So what you want to do is you want to reduce risk as much as possible and you want to get the thing out as quickly as possible. The advice that I've given you in this episode has literally just reduced your cost and reduced your time of getting your MVP out, so then you can start testing it and then you can start deciding whether this is something that you want to carry on investing in. Now there's one last point. What I've just told you is contrary to what you will hear a lot of venture capitalists say. Interestingly, it is not contrary to what a lot of non-technical founders who have been successful say. And you can literally listen to the episodes on this podcast with non-technical founders who've had a lot of success, some of whom have never had a technical co-founder. If you're new to this podcast and you want to go to those episodes, I would listen to the episode with David Segura. It was one of the first few, I think it was number 3. He's one of the top angel investors in New York. And also he founded an advertising technology company, which he sold very, very successfully. Also listen to the episode with Robin Exton, who is a Y Combinator alumna and the founder of Her. Her is a dating community for queer women. And also listen to the episode with Alexandra Zubko. She sits on the board of a NASDAQ company, and one of the companies that she co-founded has now raised Series B and has offices all around the world and serves customers around the world. All of those people that I've just told you about, they've had a lot of success and they are non-technical founders. Some of them have never had a technical co-founder. They have good tips on working with outsourced developers and on how to go from literally idea to a live product. In my experience, if you want to do something, it is much better to listen to the people who have done the thing that you want to do than to anybody else. So if you're a non-technical founder, don't listen to VCs, most of whom have never built anything. Listen to other non-technical founders who have built something and who are growing their tech-enabled businesses. This is especially relevant if you're in Europe, but also relevant in the US. In the United States, 60% of venture capitalists have experience of working in a startup. So that's 60%. 60% is pretty good, but that still means that 40% have not. In the UK, that figure is 8%. So 8% of venture capitalists in the UK have had any experience working in a startup. So what the hell are they doing giving advice to founders about how to run their businesses? Those people most of the time come from investment banking backgrounds and management consultancy backgrounds. Now, I worked in private equity and I have an MBA. I know what those people do, and I'm not saying that they don't add value. They do add value, but not when it comes to building products. That's not what they do. They're good at structuring deals. They're good at financing. They're good at selling companies. Those are all very relevant skills. But what we're talking about here right now is how do you go from having an idea in your head to having a live product that you can then get into users' hands, so then you can start validating your idea. That's not what VCs with backgrounds in investment banking are good at. So don't listen to them. Listen to non-technical founders who have built product. And those people in general are not running around looking for technical co-founders to save them. Instead, what they're doing is they're learning the basics of tech about how to go from idea to live app. They are getting some relevant advisors, and then they're working with outsourced product teams. Once the company grows, then you can hire in-house developers, then you can have a CTO, then you can have all of those things. But don't waste your time and your stress on doing that right at the beginning. I said this episode was going to be short and sweet. I'm not entirely sure now how short this is going to be, but there we are. Maybe not so short, but at least useful and to the point. On that note, if you want to learn more about how to go from idea to a live product, then come and join Tech for Non-Techies as a member. You are going to get access to our weekly live masterclasses with experts. You're going to get access to coaching with me, and you'll also get access to a unique professional community of people transitioning into tech and building interesting technology-enabled businesses. So come and join us on Tech for Non-Techies. If you found this episode useful, which I hope you did, then it would be really helpful to me if you just gave it a rating and a review. This really bumps the podcast up the algorithm and allows other people like you to find it, and that just increases our community. So by doing that, you're helping me and you're helping them. On that note, thanks for listening, have a wonderful week, and I'll speak to you soon.